So it's the 14th of September today, and we had some really awesome news at 2 a.m. this morning for me. So I missed it, I slept in. But Tears of the Kingdom finally got announced. And as you know, this channel started with Zelda. I've been a huge Zelda fan. 8 months from now till then, I thought, what a perfect chance to chronicle all of the Zelda games that have come before, play through them all in chronological order, and present them to you as kind of like a retrospect. And so that's what this video is going to be. It's just going to be running through every game. Hey, it's me again from 234 days in the future from what you just saw. And I just want to put this out there right now because I know people are going to watch this and get angrier as I go past them, but there are some games that I'm going to not play simply because I don't have access to those games. So they're either on systems that are locked behind old functionality, such as having to have 4 players, or they're only available through emulation and I don't own the original copies, so I feel bad emulating them. And so those games are, in chronological order, Four Swords, which is only on Game Boy Advance, or the Nintendo DS at a certain point of time in the past when they had a special edition. So I don't have that. You can only play that 4-player even if you try and emulate it, so that one's off the table. Next up, I'm not going to play Triforce Heroes. I know I have the game, I could play it 3 times, but I don't see it as an actual Zelda game. It's just a spin-off. It doesn't give anything to the story. Next up on the timeline, and this might sound like a little bit of a cop-out, but we're not going to do A Link Between Worlds, and the main reason for that is it's essentially a remake of A Link to the Past. So that one is out. And while we're on the same vein as remakes, I'm going to avoid the Ocarina of Time 3D remake and Majoras Mask 3D remake as well. The main reason is because, again, they're just remakes again, right? They don't really... They're less different than this is from the original source material. And the other games we're going to skip out that I don't have around me is Four Swords Adventure, which is exclusively a GameCube game, so I think the only way I could play it is emulation, which I'm not really for, especially now after the Point Crow situation. I didn't know that 236 days ago that would be so bad, so there's some things I do in this video that might get it struck down by Nintendo. We're also going to avoid, and this is going to piss everybody off, that's why I'm putting this right at the beginning, Link's Adventure, The Legend of Zelda 2 Link's Adventure. I'm just not doing it. And I potentially could get it, but it'd be difficult to. No, I could get Nintendo Switch Online, but I don't want to pay that money for that service. I just don't think that's worth it. I'd rather, if it was available to buy for a couple of bucks, I'd buy it. I'm not renting it. Anyway, back to the past so that you can see how we get here. So I'm literally starting Skyward Sword right now on the old Switch, and we'll just go from there. So this is a tale that you humans have passed down through uncounted generations. And it tells of a war of something. I missed it. Skyward Sword means a lot to me. It's my favourite Zelda story. So I've only just replayed through this like 6 months ago or so, where I finished my first playthrough on the HD version. So it's still quite fresh, but hey, I don't mind jumping back in, giving it another go. So let's see how that goes. And we've beaten it. We've beaten the game. 1 month and 5 days after starting this project, and I'm questioning if I can fit in 17 games. I don't think I'm doing all of them. I'm going to have a disclaimer somewhere at some point in this video that tells you which ones I'm definitely not playing. But we've wrapped up Skyward Sword, so what do I think after finishing one of the most controversial games in the series? Well, I'm a big advocate of the game. I think from a story perspective and an immersion perspective, it's one of the best Zelda games there is. I mean, you can go like this, and Link moves his sword in real time in the game. And I when it first came out, I thought that was amazing. I thought what that did for the player brought it so much higher than all of the downsides of having to recalibrate your Wiimote and that sort of thing. I know people struggle with that. I found it to be a little bit of an issue sometimes, but if you were sitting far enough away and if you were able to recalibrate by pushing down on the D-pad whenever you needed to, then it actually wasn't a big issue at all. How do I feel about it now? Well, now we've got the retrospect of Breath of the Wild. And how does this game stack up to what they could have done if they had just carried on with the open world with what they had in Twilight Princess and a better game engine and better graphics and just did something iterative between what Twilight Princess was and what Breath of the Wild became. I think that does detract a lot from how good this game is because you now are comparing it to one of the best games of all time. But in saying that, I still think we needed this. This was a necessary step to go through, so I appreciate it for what it is. In terms of characters and in terms of lore and world building, this game is amazing. It has Bruce, who's one of the best characters. It has one of the best iterations of Zelda and one of the best iterations of Impa that I've ever seen in a game series. And I still don't think that what we've seen since has been better than what we see right here. This relationship between Link and Impa, the feeling of Link not being good enough, the bullying from Bruce at the beginning, and then seeing him transform into this character who actually means something to the plot. He's not just a Mito who comes to accept him for what he is. He actually becomes something above and beyond after accepting that he isn't the hero. And, that's really immersive. It's a really great way of doing it. The way that Link is always just one step behind Zelda. She's not just sitting in a castle somewhere waiting to be saved or waiting to be liberated or fighting Ganon. She's actually just one step, and so you feel that urgency, and you feel that emotion, that connection. So that when they finally get together, and you're like, yes, they're there, only for her to have to lock herself away, and Link to have to sacrifice more. And then the subtle connection with Link and the Triforce that he slowly unlocks throughout the game for that big payoff at the end. I think the story beats in this game are amazing. They're the best. I'm getting chills just remembering it. I've just experienced it all. So, as a starting point for somebody new to the series, I think it's a brilliant place to start. Even though it came out, it's the second newest game of the series. But then the other thing is, returning to it after playing Breath of the Wild, there were new gameplay elements that I didn't even know about that I discovered by fluke. I went to Shield Bash. I mean, I know that they're always there, but I went to Shield Bash behemoths because it's a laser, and I do that with Guardians all the time to great success. And it ricocheted, it knocked it back, and I was like, hey, look at that. That's something that I took from Breath of the Wild and I put in here. And then also, I think the shield, last time I played this, was very underrated. The gameplay, last time I played this was mostly on having it in the dock, playing with the Joy-Cons like I am now. I was very adamant on doing that because I liked putting the sword in and lifting the sword out of all the pedestals whenever you did one of the Asylum Realm missions and that sort of thing. And so this time around I played more handheld, which I think is a better experience, maybe, because of the controller aspect. You're able to control the sword a lot more fluently. You don't just have random arbitrary slashes and that sort of thing. But the downside is I find when I'm playing with Joy-Cons, I'm holding down this button constantly to move the camera around. I don't know if that's a good game design, but hey, it's what this needed to be able to come across to a handheld device. And the soundtrack. What else can I say? The soundtrack in this game is so good. It just hits home. Skyloft and the light and airy world that it portrays. And then before you leave, you're hit with that fateful music when Zelda goes missing. Fi's theme throughout. Just everything with the soundtrack is great. I don't think there's any songs on the soundtrack that I wouldn't just listen to, when I'm doing work or when I'm washing the dishes or something. I've just realised my mic is not recording. But in saying that, it is now time to move on to the next game in the series, which is The Legend of Zelda, the Minish Cap. This is a game I've only ever clocked once on the faithful Wii U. I have a Wii U again so I can play it again, and I'm going to play it again. So I'll see you once I've finished. Oh, thank God. So I've just beaten Minish Cap. It's been like, I think 3 days, maybe 4. But I did it, and it's impressive. Now, quickly, we must break the curse on Zelda, who's been turned into stone in this game, to take away from the usual of her just being imprisoned. Now she's a Han Solo type character. So, what do I have to say about Minish Cap? Well, it starts off as a very innocent Zelda game, like anything from the old 8-bit and 16-bit era. It's very compact, much more compact, I feel, than... Oh, what am I supposed to do here? I'm supposed to use my magic blade. Bah, there we go. Woken her up. Yeah, much more compact than what I recall from A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds, which I have clocked before, and much easier puzzles than the 8-bit Game Boy games, which is the Oracle series. So I did enjoy my time playing this, but I found that the second half of the game, it starts to troll you a lot. And what I mean by that is the last 2 dungeons that you do, you get the boss key really early on, and then you don't get into the boss room straight away. The dungeon continues, so there's a subversion of expectations there, which I like. I really enjoy... What are we doing here? Are we still playing? Is the music... Okay, I guess we're trying to escape the... So we're not out yet. This is very Ocarina of Time ending of escaping. I'm hoping there's no more boss fights after this, because I am tapped out. And I have prepared my speech. What I love about this game is, because it came out after the N64 era games, it's borrowed a lot from that, whereas like Link's Awakening was kind of an attempted remake of A Link Between Worlds, and Ocarina of Time was informed a lot from what they put into that game, whereas this borrows a lot from the Ocarina games. Even the sound files when Link rolls and swings his sword is directly lifted from the Ocarina of Time, and I think even Vati's laugh is the masked salesman as well, so it's cool that it has those files. It has some slightly better sound effects. Oh my god, no! No, am I fighting him again? Because I can't fight him again. I'm fighting him again. He's just a giant ball with arms. Okay. Oh, thank God. That is over. Oh, I had some nice stuff to say about this game, and now I'm just pissed off. But we got the magic cap that made Vati magic. So yeah, it's a good game in the way that it steps away from Ganon or Ganondorf. It takes place so much further back in the timeline. It sets up a lot of stuff. It just feels really small, and until you turn small, then it feels a bit bigger. which I liked. I wish there was a bit more of that. I'd love to see a remake where they explored that a bit more, or oh god, he's turned back into a man. That's all I really have to say about this game. But that means now that we've wrapped up Minish Cap and that we're having the nice little final words, we can finally jump into one of my favourite entries in the series. Very dear to me because it's the first Zelda game I ever played, and that is Ocarina of Time, which is just a masterpiece. I'm choosing to play this one on the Wii U as well because I don't want to have to pay $80 a year for a subscription to be able to play a game that I don't even own but I've already bought 5 other times. So here we go, we're playing it on the Wii U. I don't know why I'm pushing the touchscreen, and we'll kick things off. Now this, I feel like I farted. My kids have been playing this. I feel like this one's going to be a pretty quick jaunt through Hyrule, and then we're going to have to make a choice as to which timeline we follow. Now I have a feeling around that, and we'll touch base in a few days when I've finished playing this. So let's begin. Alright, here about to deliver the final blow to Ganon, and guess how long it took me to wrap up this whole game?
A week.
That's right, it took 2 weeks, thanks King of the Zora. I always like to power this up and really get him. 1, 2, and 3, and then a final stab in the face, which always seems to be his one weakness, is shoving a sword in Ganon's face. Wow, that was fun. 6 sages are now unleashing their power, and we've wrapped this game up. So, as a retrospect, how do I feel about the game? Having played it, I don't know, maybe a dozen times in my lifetime, reaching this moment so many times. I like this game is a classic for me. It's the first Zelda game I ever played, and it instantly absorbed me into it. It took us like 6 or 7 weeks for me, my friend, and my brother to beat, working together. And I just remember one weekend we spent the whole weekend on the water temple, and I think it was like Monday or Tuesday morning I was ringing him up and I was like, did you find that key? Have you beaten the water temple yet? So it was a very satisfying moment to beat Ganon and to see the end of this. And then of course, being introduced to the phased boss that you'd have to beat and then escape and then beat. It was very rewarding and it was very cool. What more can I say about this game that hasn't already been said? It's just a masterpiece. Something we didn't see in Minish Cap so far in this video, and only was really briefly or not well done in Skyward Sword, is this is the first time chronologically you see that two-phased world. So you explore the world as a kid and then you transform it into an adult, and sorry, that text just caught me off guard. And then you see the world again through an adult's eyes after Ganon's influence, which I think is really cool. I love seeing that done in other games. We're going to see that in the next game that we'll talk about. You see that in Twilight Princess with seeing the Twilight realm and the normal realm. But for Breath of the Wild, that hasn't really been done. So it'd be interesting to see if Tears of the Kingdom does something like that. In terms of positive and negative things about the game, so I mean positively, it's held up really well, and I think it's been really well complemented by games that have come after it. So obviously it's the secret sauce. They always mention that whenever they make a Zelda game, they look at what Ocarina of Time did and how can they build on that. So I'm glad that they haven't lost sight of that after Windwaker and Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. I'm glad that with Breath of the Wild they managed to come full circle and have some really solid links to what was there in their foundations and build on that, which has been cool. I guess the only negative things I have to say about it is that there are a few things that are a little bit tired, like the cutscenes, just the pacing of the cutscenes. It takes a long time for a door to open, or if you have to do a puzzle over and over and you have to have the same cutscene every time, it can be a little bit frustrating. That's just how I feel. And again, the other frustration, and this is only because I was playing the emulated version on the WiiU, is that having the C-pad mapped to this guy here was not fun. When I was fighting Lord Bongo, is that what he's called? When I was fighting him, I was so frustrated because every time I went to fire an arrow, even though I was tweaking across on the joystick, it thought I was going up, so Navi would tell me what I was fighting again when I was just trying to fire an arrow at a hand that was about to come and crush me. I found that very frustrating. So I even mapped one of the buttons to the Y button just so I could have an actual tactical button to push, which solved the problem. So it's good that you can do that. It solves a problem that was never present in the original game, because I think that the button layout and controls for the original game were great. So yeah, I guess that's the only negative thing I have to say about the game. I mean, what more can I say about this game? I didn't go fully into it. I feel like I need to catch up on my timeline so that I can fit the rest of the games into the small amount of time that I have left. We got this many months left. I had to count them on my hands. 7 months before we get to Tears of the Kingdom. So I do need to start stepping up my game. And that brings us to this point in the game where Zelda is standing in this giant blue realm and thanking Link, and she's about to send him back to being a child, which of course creates the controversial timeline split of the adult, child, and downfall timeline. Now, even though I haven't yet had a game over in this game, while I've been running through this, I am going to do the controversial route of skipping Majora's Mask for now. We'll come back to Majora's Mask when we do the child timeline, but I'm actually going to play a game that I've never fully clocked, and that is A Link to the Past. So I've played the game, I got to that temple with the hands that drop down and pull you out, and I just lost my shit and I never played it. I have beaten A Link Between Worlds, so I mean theoretically I've kind of beaten the game, but it's a remake and I don't think it's as difficult as the old one. So we're going to go back and play that. We're not going to play A Link Between Worlds in this playthrough. I'm just cutting that one out. But we will do that one next. And then from there, there's a few other games in the timeline that I've never completed 100% as well. So we'll do the whole downfall timeline, get that one out of the way, get out of the way the majority of the top-down Zelda games, or the 2D Zelda games, and then we'll get into the ones that I've been really amped up to play and haven't played for years, that come in the child and the adult timelines. It's weird, I feel like I'm wrapping up a video, but I'm doing this continuously, so here goes. We're going to jump straight into it. And to be fair, I've been playing everything so far on the Wii U, or the Switch, so I'm going to, even though it's not as good for capturing, I'm going to use the SNES Mini. I'm going to use the SNES Mini just to have that experience of using a handheld, of using the original controller to play the game. So that'd be pretty fun, unless I get arthritis. Did we do it? Did we do it? We did it! Oh, thank God. We beat the game I've never beaten before. That was a time. That was a time. And we have finally beaten Ganon again. And we got this magical slices of pizza coming down out. Welcome, Link. I'm the essence of the Triforce. Okay. Cool. The Triforce will grant the wishes of the hearts and minds of the person who touches it. That's so awesome. So, this game was tough. I want to say I had a really nice streak going with the first 3 games. I didn't get a single game over in any one of them. And possibly because I was so familiar with it. There was a 3D setting for 2 of them. And Minish Cap was just a little bit easier, I suppose. And I game overed so many times in this game. So many times. To the point that I almost gave up. I was thinking that this might have been a little bit beyond me. But then, you know, I got into this really good groove. I was like nailing... Once we got into the Dark World and I got past the Skull Dungeon with the dropping hands, that was the one I gave up with last time I played this on the Wii U with the emulator. Once I got past there, I really hit my stride, and I was doing the Ice Temple, I was doing the Water Temple, I was going left and right, you know, I was nailing it. All the way up to smashing Turtle Rock, which was a challenge. And then we finally started ascending Ganon's Tower. This was like Thursday last week, I was doing real good. And then something happened that I did not intend. A game released which I was not ready for with my schedule, which was Pokemon Violet.
For 500 years it poisoned his mind.
Oh, he's turned into a rocket ship. And I picked that game up, and I played that all weekend. So my groove I got into, right at the apex of this battle, completely lost that groove. I was nearly at the top of Ganon's Tower, and I decided to turn around and just leave and get some more fairies because I was nearly dead. And then expecting the final battle to be all in one go, you know, I needed all my fairies. Then I returned back to the top, had to refight all the mini-bosses that I'd already fought, which was super frustrating, but I found out that Silver Arrows is like a one-hit kill for most of them, which was great. Beat Agaham, thinking I was going to go straight into the battle with Ganon, and found out I had a little respite, so I could go top up my fairies anyway. So that was a big rigmarole for nothing. But we've done it. We've finally gotten to the end of this game. We're going to grant our wish, and our wish is going to be to move on to the next game. So in following the chronology of the Zelda timeline, and that we're in the Downfall timeline, the next game following this 16-bit masterpiece was an 8-bit attempted remake of this on the Game Boy Color that later became a cult classic called Link's Awakening. So we're going to be playing the remake of that remake. We're going to be playing the Nintendo Switch version of that, which I've beaten once or twice before, since it came out back in 2018? 2018? Yeah, that feels right. Maybe 2019. This one is a nice little pocket-sized game, so we should be able to knock this one out pretty quickly if I can break my addiction to Pokemon long enough to play it. So let's see how that goes. I've beaten the game again. Hope you're not too surprised. I was a bit surprised that it this time around felt like it was a lot smoother to play through. The last time I played it was in 2019 when the game came out, and prior to that I'd only really played it on a Game Boy emulator on my phone on the train, and I never finished the game. So that was a marathon the first time. This time around it felt a little bit easier, also given the fact that I'd just played A Link to the Past, which does borrow a lot. So that final battle against the Nightmare, there was a lot of Ganon elements in there, so I was able to hinge on that and succeed at the end. And it was nice because my kids saw me playing it. Just over the last couple of days I was putting it on after dinner, just like working through the dungeons together, and they were really entertained just watching it.
You're literally playing a song of destruction.
Yeah, but it's nice. It's one of those games that's perfect for everybody to sit and watch, because they're going, look, there's a wall you can bomb. I didn't see that before, and it's like, oh, that's great. So that was really that part of it was nice. I'd say that's the nicest part. I'll come back to that because there are some negatives I have about this little remake. I mean, sure, this game was an attempt to port over A Link to the Past to the Game Boy, and then it became something else entirely. You've got Mario in there, you've got I guess hints at Yoshi, you've got Kirby in there at one point, and Princess Peach. So it's a fun little mashup, and that's great. When they said they were remaking it, not remastering it, the leaks were that it's being remade. I had in my head a grand vision, of a ground-up remake where they would just use the Breath of the Wild engine and introduce a whole bunch of fun stuff. That's what I was expecting. And I think it's because you see modders out there making their own versions of A Link to the Past, and they've just remade the whole game in Unreal Engine 4, and it looks beautiful. And it would have been really great if this could have got that same treatment. I mean, it looks nice, but for what it is, it's very stuttery. There's not any frames between Link turning on his axis, so from turning from looking straight to looking on diagonal, it's just like snaps to it. It would have been nice if they'd animated those frames a little bit more. And I get it, it's Grezio that's just made this, but I would have expected a bit better. Anyway, the nice part was finishing this game surrounded by people that I loved. I figured that's how I'd want to end this life, is surrounded by people I love, maybe playing Zelda, only to find that this life has just been a dream of some deity, and someone has woken it up and caused me to perish. A little bit dark. Anyway, moving on. We've now moved into a bit of an interesting realm of playing the Oracle games. So I've clocked both of these games once before on the 3DS. When I did it last time, I did Seasons and then Ages. So this time around I'm going to do Ages and then Seasons. I'm going to use the password so I can play them continuatively. And I know I've gone on record to say that I'm not for emulators, but obviously I've played emulators before. I own digital copies of the game. I'm going to be a bit of a badass and play this one on my phone. So at least Ages. I'll do Ages on my phone, and because it's just, I don't know how else I'd do screen caps. So that's why I'm going to do it on the phone. I'm going to mesh them together as one review in the next segment. Spoilers! There's so much depth to these games. There's so much interesting scenery, interesting landscapes and layouts that is just so non-typical of a Zelda game. It's so removed from the tropes of being in Hyrule. There's a very different approach to how things are done, and at the same time I'm just sick of the 8-bit games. So for me it was a bit of a dredge. Playing it on my phone was not the funnest way to experience it. I did find myself skipping through a bunch of dialogue and stuff like that just to get back into the action. But in saying that, I still think that they're great games that if you've never played, you've got to give the time to play. When I first played them, I thought that they were just cheap knockoffs of Zelda games because it was made by Capcom. It didn't feel the same. You had Din and Nehru just randomly prancing around when they're supposed to be goddesses, so that part didn't make sense. But when you break it down and look at the timeline, it does feel a lot more significant, you know. In the Downfall timeline, you'd have Kotaku and Konami, whatever their names are. You would have had them surviving. So, of course, once Ganon had his first downfall in A Link to the Past, then they would return to try and awaken him, and they have this sort of like dark Triforce thing going on. So I definitely, with the fires of despair and sorrow and whatever. So I think it is definitely worth playing both at the same time. I could see Nintendo releasing these games and doing well with with making them on the Switch as a dual pack that you could play back to back and pick whichever one you play first. But all in all, they're enjoyable little bits, which are now available on Nintendo Switch Online service, which you should use to play the games the legal way rather than playing them on your phone. And I do not recommend using your phone to play these games ever, at all. But now, as I get sick of the top-down 2D Zelda games, and just I'm yearning for playing Twilight Princess so badly right now, but we're going to use the Wii U one more time. I've purchased the original Zelda, Legend of Zelda from 1987, the year before I was born. The game that I've never played. Well, I've played it, I've never completed it. It's just been one of those things I've dabbled in, and I've never really gone any further than that. And so now we're going to dive into this game. I'll return in a few moments with my thoughts and feelings about how it went. We're not going to do Zelda 2 though. I'm drawing the line at Zelda 2. That game, I don't feel it would be possible for me to complete it. So we're just going to skip over that one. I've beaten the game that I've never beaten before again, which feels great. I didn't honestly think I'd be able to get to this point once. I had some serious doubts when I really started this journey off that I'd be able to get this far through it. I can't remember where I started, but it's the end of January today. Tomorrow's February. So it feels like a good halfway point to talk about the journey so far and what we've done here and how it's going to go forward. So, this is so cool. There's Zelda. Oh my god. Okay, I can just go touch her. Yay. So, thanks, Link. You're the hero of Hyrule. Oh, look at that. We've got little triangles. Finally, peace returns to Hyrule. For now. The end. The game, let's talk about the game for a little bit, right? I found this game, the actual puzzles were easy because everything that happens in this game is amplified to the max in everything else we've played so far. So like bombing secret walls, they seem a lot more obvious in this game. The puzzles in the actual dungeons seem simple. Where the challenges is getting from A to B with full health. I found another quest will start from here. Press the start button. Ooh. I can do hero mode. That's cool. I died 54 times. So, it was a very challenging game, just to get around. And I think in a lot of ways, Breath of the Wild is the same, right? The core dungeons are simple. The challenges in getting there and getting through. So I can see now where the similarities come from beyond the concept and the art and that sort of thing. Where I'm at the moment mentally, I'm very fatigued with the top-down, low graphics games. I want to get into some Twilight Princesses. I want to get into some Windwakers. I want to get back into Breath of the Wild. But I'm just fatigued in the whole process of actually recording and doing all of that while playing, because it's not as enjoyable if you have to go, right, I'll pause it here because now I need to move the whole thing downstairs and plug it into my capture card and record this next bit. Like, I'm not for that. I'm not one of those people who likes to go around on Instagram or Facebook boomeranging everything I do. I just want to boomerang things in Zelda. So it is getting a bit grueling, and now I need to decide where we go from here, because there is one more game in this timeline, which is Legend of Zelda 2, and I don't really want to play it because it's just so... First of all, I don't have any more money on this to buy it here. I don't want to resubscribe to Nintendo Online and play it there. I don't have the NES emulator, the NES Mini. I only have the SNES. So, what is next? And I don't really like the idea of just skipping out on playing it. So maybe we should look at what we could do.
A few minutes later.
Okay, we have got The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. I guess I'm starting this game now on an emulator on my PC, if the controls will work. I don't have the window selected. After Ganon was destroyed, Impa told Link that a sleeping spell was cast on Princess Zelda. She will wake only with the power of number 3 Triforce sealed in a place in Hyrule. To break the seal, crystals must be placed in statues in 6 well-guarded places, or palaces. Link has set out on his most adventurous quest yet. I've changed the name to Jink. What the hell? Okay. There we go, Jink. Here we are. Okay, I've got Sword Beam. This game is just... This is just wild. Okay, here we go. We're starting our quest. We're walking around in an 8-bit Hyrule. Oh my god. I can't see anything. Ah, the keys! Jink, no! It just seems right to me that we play a game that is a sequel to the original, in the lead up to a sequel to the original Switch game of The Legend of Zelda. So that's kind of where my thinking is when I do this experiment. Alright. That's the end of the game. Right there. That's incredible. The Triforce. Zelda is being woken up with Triforce number 3, as well as the previous 2 Triforces that we got just at the end of The Legend of Zelda. Wow. That's I'm so glad I looked that up on YouTube instead of playing it. I didn't have time, okay, to delve into the whole game. So where do we go from here? We're going to either do Majora's Mask or Windwaker in the adult timeline, where Link left the future and went back to the past, and there was no more hero, or the child timeline where he went and lived his life out and went to Termina and had adventures there. Both of those games I've recently replayed. When I got the Wii U, I managed to find a copy of Wind Waker, so I've half played this, and then I've given all my free save slots up to my kids, so I'm going to have to pick one I like the least, delete their save slot, and play that. And then also, recently I've completed Majora's Mask with the challenge of rewinding time only a limited amount of times that you would have seen last year. You definitely saw it. Everybody saw that challenge. I was taught how to dance by a naked man under the midnight moon on top of a frozen tree. So, because I haven't finished Windwaker, and Majora's Mask feels more of a chore, and I really want to play Twilight Princess, I'm going to go with Majora's Mask next. We're going to smash this one out in 3 days and just get that one done so we can jump into a game I haven't played for about 5 or 6 years. Wow. Wow. That happened. We did it. So when I started this, I said we beat the game in 3 days as a joke because it's a 3-day cycle. But this time round, it took me 4 days to do, which I'm not too displeased with. I think that's a good amount of time to beat this game, especially considering I've played it so many times. This was my first Zelda game that I personally owned, so I just spent hours and hours in it, just reliving, sorry, there's a bug, just reliving the 3 days like Groundhog Day. So I thought I knew everything about this game, but I still found some things that surprised me. The reason it took me 4 days, I argue, is because when I first started this game, I did the initial runway of the Deku Sprout in Clocktown, and I didn't record anything, and I wanted to get all of those opening shots, so I had a save state on the WiiU, and I decided I'd do the Song of Time, save it, and then I'll go back to that save state just to get some screenshots and some videos of like all the establishing shots of the town and everything like that, because I thought that would look really good for the purposes of this video, and I wiped the whole save state. I didn't realize that when I loaded a save state, it would delete my save when I did the Song of Time, so I had to do that all over again. And because I didn't want to be that thorough this time round, like I didn't do everything in the game, I didn't get all the masks, I was like, I don't need to do the whole bomber side quest. I can remember the pin, so I went straight to the little boy and gave him the pin, which I still remember as 21543. It was pretty easy to remember. I did that, I went in, got the moon tear and left as the Deku Sprout, nothing happened. And then I had to do something, I had to get some rupees to pay for when I was doing my sword upgrade. That looks like Morgan Freeman. I shouldn't have said that. And Jim, the leader of the bombers, came and was like, how do you know our pin? And I'd never seen that before. So that was exciting to see. Saw some new stuff. And I had some challenges. So this is the first time I've fought Majora in over a decade, not as fierce deity, and I forgot how challenging the initial 2 phases were. I really had to adapt and learn some different skills there to be able to beat him. Aside from that, it's been a pretty straightforward run. There were some things I forgot again, like when I did my punctual run. I think I only rewound time about 6 or 7 times, which isn't too bad. I think in the grand scheme of things, that's a pretty good run. I didn't have to have a go at Lon Lon Ranch, thank God, because that whole side mission terrifies me. And yeah, essentially we're just I'm just impressed that I could discover some new things in this game. It's like you can learn everything there is to know about it within 3 days, but even after 100 playthroughs, it can still surprise you. I think that's the second Lord of the Rings quote I've used in this video as well. G'day, how's it going? We're at the end of Twilight Princess, but I haven't beat it yet. I'm in the final tower of the castle, about to go fight Ganon, and I thought I'd celebrate by wearing my Twilight Mirror t-shirt. Don't know if you can see that. I've just come out to let the chickens out and let them have a little bit of a roam around before they gang up on me and attack me. And I apologize for the cicadas. I hope I'm able to take them out in post, which I wasn't able to do, so I'm re-recording everything here in my studio months later. This was recorded back in February. Right now it is April the 3rd, so I can't use this footage. It's unusable. This is what it sounds like, me talking there. But I thought I'd come up here and just talk about the game. So I made some really good points while I was sitting out on the bridge, and you just unfortunately can't hear them, so I thought I'd just repeat them all here about the game itself. Before I dive into that, at this point in the video I was feeling really down on the whole editing process because there were just a whole lot of hurdles. I was way behind on editing, and it just felt like this project was going nowhere, and I didn't think anybody was going to watch it. I obviously pulled through much later in the games at this point in time. and I'm feeling like the project's kind of coming together a little bit better. There's just this one roadblock of all the audio here being really crap, and I wish I could do the same thing for that audio way back at the beginning of the video, but you guys have already seen that part. We're already past that, so it doesn't matter as much anymore. Anyway, the main things that I had to say about this game after rewatching this footage and trying to listen to what I was talking about is mostly that this is a great game. It's especially the HD port. They've managed to lift up a lot of those HD textures, even if they still look a little bit muddy, and it still feels like a 2006 game. It's still a very fun and enjoyable game. Some of the things that will jar people if they start with Breath of the Wild and jump back to this one is that it's a very constricted sort of world, having a bit of a ridge everywhere you go that keeps you within this very narrow part of the map is a little bit gutting, but it's very cool that you can see landmarks from other areas and then go and explore them and that sort of thing. Hyrule Field feels amazing. And then I think the main 4 points I had for this game, get them in the frame, that made it feel really good, were the first one was Link. Link just feels so animated, so fluid. When you see him swinging his sword, the way he rides his horse, the combat on the horse, the combat and the expanded combat as you learn new moves as you go from that mysterious skeleton character. Who could that be? That sort of thing really just makes the game so much more immersive and feel really good. The second thing was, I think it was the characters. Seeing the world through Midna's eyes. You've been playing as a silent protagonist this entire time. This game, Midna feels like the main character, and Link is just her horse. He's just how she gets from A to B. So it's really awesome to have a game where you can actually see the impact of the story happen on somebody. Then it's not just a ball of light or a robot person, that fairy lady. Midna's actually got some depth and range to her character and some development, which Link never has. So that feels really good as well. And then just in the world in general, Kakariko Village, Orden Village, Hyrule Castle Town, the Zora's Domain, the Goron Town, they all feel like real lived-in places, which feels really good. And there are unique characters. All of the characters in Telma's Bar, the Adventurers Guild or whatever they're called, all of that just feels so much more immersive again than even Breath of the Wild doesn't do characters as well as Twilight Princess. I feel like that was peak Zelda for NPCs. Whereas Breath of the Wild, it's more about the world, and you've got a few memorable characters here and there, but they don't have as much of an impact on the story. You could essentially avoid them and it wouldn't matter. The third thing is, and this is specific to the HD remake, is all of the functionality that they added and the way that they've streamlined the game with the gamepad. So as you're playing with the gamepad, there's a button on the gamepad that you can push and transform directly from Link to Wolf Link and back again. You don't have to go through the Midna menu, which I totally forgot about until halfway through the playthrough. And then on the fly, you can chop and change weapons, so you can select what you want and assign them to the buttons as you're walking around, which is a huge improvement. There's no more pausing to go through. Obviously, if they ported this game to the Switch, that stuff would all come back because you don't have that extra functionality, which is a bit of a shame. And even just the map on the Wii U gamepad, this game wasn't developed for the Wii U, but they added some awesome functionality with the map where you can zoom in and look at things, if you want to figure out where a treasure chest is. And the map on Twilight Princess is not that detailed, so it's kind of a shame to think of that all of that stuff was scrapped for Breath of the Wild, which was being developed for the Wii U. And how you could have zoomed in on the really interesting map features on Breath of the Wild to look at how am I going to climb this hill, or what could be hidden over there. All of that stuff would have gone to make it more homogenous between the two different platforms. So it's a shame that stuff went, but ultimately, it's still a good game. The fourth thing is the cutscenes in this game are immaculate. They're almost better than Skyward Sword. They're on par, but some of them just, like the slow-mo scene of where the bokoblins invade Kakariko Village and kidnap Colin, and then the subsequent scenes around there, and then some of the sort of live-action cutscenes. So some of the gameplay just feels like you're watching a movie where you're attacking the the village where the Sheikah lady lives, and you have to go in. It's like a western shootout. Or when you're accompanying the trolley that has the sick Prince Ruto, Zora child. I forget because it's been so long now. That entire sequence was amazing because it's not just an on-rail shooter like what you get in Majora's Mask. You're riding around fighting, cutting down orcs, or not orcs, but goblins. I say orcs because this game came out in 2006 originally, just on the heels of the Lord of the Rings trilogy that swept the nation. Well, it did for New Zealand, it still does, but swept the world. And I feel like there was a lot of things borrowed from Lord of the Rings. You know, a lot of those themes and things really complement the Zelda storyline really well. And it was cool to see them kind of bleed through, because they're two of my favorite franchises in the world. And I think it was really good that it influenced it how it did. I don't think that they've ever said that they were influenced by it, but it feels very much so that they were. And it makes me excited for Tears of the Kingdom, because one of the influences they said as they were building this game was that they played a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2. So yeah, seeing the trailers and everything, there's not a lot of clarity as to what that inspiration could have been or what it transformed into, but I'd love to see it. One of the points I made as I was making this video is that when I started Twilight Princess was actually probably the day before, as I was just wrapping up Majora's Mask. There was a Facebook post from Nintendo saying 100 days until Tears of the Kingdom. And then when I finished and wrapped this up, it was 82. So it took me 18 days to get through that game. And I think I was feeling a little bit doubtful that I could get through everything I needed to get through. Right now, sitting in April, I'm feeling a lot more confident. I'll let you see why that is as time progresses. But for now, at this point, it's time to shelf Twilight Princess and pick up the next game at the beginning of another timeline, which was Windwaker. This game is just so fun to play. It's so vast and so colourful, and it just pops and it pulls you in. It makes you feel like you are there. I have countless hours spent in this game. The first time I played it on the GameCube version on the Wii, I was blown away. And the remake on the Wii U just does everything so much better. I don't know how they've managed to do it, but the colour and the upscaling, everything is just so much better than Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword HD. So I don't know if it's just the cell shading that it's done better over time, or what. Maybe they put more care into the lighting and everything, but it just looks so atmospheric and so good. Story-wise, it's a pretty quick story this time around. I really flew through it because I had recently just played this last year or the year before when I made my Wind Waker map video to compare it to the Breath of the Wild map. So I'd gone all the way up to the Tower of the Gods pretty quick. So this time it was just sort of like bang, bang, bang. And the game does sort of push you to do things faster. You know, the King of Red Lions is always saying, you know, we've got to go here, we've got to do this, we've got to hurry. So you are sort of pulled through really quickly. And then there's a bit of a respite after you get the Master Sword. you're kind of sent out to go and look for the sages and all of that, and that's supposed to be a little bit more of a slow tangent. But again, I kind of pushed through that really fast. I wasn't stopping to get maps or get heart pieces or anything like that. And then I got to the point where I needed to get the Triforce of Courage, and the game grinded to a halt because I hadn't done all that work to get myself there. You know, there are some things you can accidentally do early on in the game, and I was just missing them. I was just going here, there, and everywhere. So it was a little bit of a grind right at the end. Like, it stopped, and I had to all right, now I got to go find the Tingle maps and all of this, and the HD version does trim it down, so that was a little bit faster than it would have been, but it was still, I guess, kind of long-winded. But we got there in the end. A very satisfying boss battle with Ganon. Probably one of the better ones in terms of combat. The combat is more simplified than in Twilight Princess. They made it a little bit more complicated, but the phases of the battle beforehand are really nice. The battle with Ganondorf just feels more organic, I suppose. So yeah, all in all, again, this game is just going to stand up to time. It's so good. And I've been watching a few things of the mid-Zelda game development cycles and that sort of thing from Did You Know Gaming and all of that. And it's sad to think that we are never going to get a true sequel to Windwaker. They were going to make one, and because of the graphics they scrapped it, and then they brought it back later on the 3DSs. It's not 3DS, the 2DSs, which is what we're going to do next. But yeah, it's interesting to think where they could have gone with that. But if they hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have got Twilight Princess, and we wouldn't have got Skyward Sword, and Breath of the Wild wouldn't be what it is. The plus side is to think of this HD remake coming out sort of 10 years later, 10 years from Breath of the Wild coming out, which for us is only, it's only 4 years away from now. There might be an HD remake on the next Switch, if there is going to be one, whatever that console looks like. So, how are things stacking up? It's the 13th of March today. So I finished Wind Waker kind of last week or over the weekend. I can't remember the exact day that I finished it. And then I just immediately jumped into Phantom Hourglass because it's the type of game where you can just pick it up and it lifts up directly after. The gameplay obviously is a little bit different because of the way it works on the 3DS. I keep saying 3DS. On the 2DS. It just works differently. But story-wise, it just slots straight in there. So we are jumping straight into the Phantom Hourglass, which I'm already 2 temples in. It's the 13th of March today, so if I can finish this and get started on Spirit Tracks before the end of the month, I have confidence that we'll be able to blitz this before Tears of the Kingdom comes out, because I want a nice week break before, finish Breath of the Wild, get this all edited, ready to upload, and then just sort of play Breath of the Wild a little bit and do some nostalgia stuff without having this weight of this video on my back. That's kind of where we're at now. I've just finished playing this game, so it's been 21 days for me in this lovely little world. And I wanted to spend some time just talking about Phantom Hourglass while it's top of mind, while it's fresh. Because this game, it's a gem. I've played this game before on the DS, way back in sort of 2009-ish, 2010. And it still holds up today. It's a brilliant game. Graphical issues aside, the issues with the controls and things that people didn't like, that detracted from this game being a true Wind Waker sequel, it still has so much charm and so much ingenuity that I think it's really sad that the only way to really enjoy this is on two dead consoles. You can't really play it unless you're gonna go out and get the physical game. Like in this point in time, now that the eShop closed like 3 days ago, so now the only way to really play this is to find the physical card and an old DS or a 3DS and play it that way. And I only was able to complete this game on the WiiU because I had a physical card, and when you got to a certain point it just stopped working. So I think that's really sad, and I think there's a major issue with porting this to the Switch in its current state because there's so much functionality that they used from the DS that just won't make that possible. And what I mean by that is this this game really used every part of the DS that it really could use. There are parts of the game where you have to use the folding screen to. There's a stamp on one part of the map, and there's the map that you can draw on, and it says to move that onto the other map. And the only way to do that is to close the DS to make the imprint. Of course, on this you just push the menu button, and then you push it again, and that does it. So it's not as fun or intuitive. And I would have loved to have played this game on a DS to get that experience, to take it around. But again, the issue with recording this, as well as, like, I played this game on the bus a whole lot, and I can remember getting to this point in the game where you have to yell into the microphone. It happens a few times. It catches you out because it's not just like a fun tutorial thing. It comes back again and again. And there are parts where you just have to scream. And I remember playing on the couch. I was playing this on the couch, and my kids were asleep, and me and my wife were just sort of like having chill time, having our own, social media time or game time. And I just said to her, "Look, sorry, honey, I have to scream into my video game console now." It's just so weird and quirky, and I love it. I think it's a really cool thing that they did there, and really, like, they've pushed this game to the limit, taking the Wind Waker style, kind of dumbing down that cell shading look to sort of bare bones so that they can fit it all on. It's a huge world. Transgressing the ocean feels a little bit funny sometimes because you're just kind of, you don't get to be as on the ball. You have to kind of plan and then just hope it goes well. But that kind of makes sense in the way that you would sail with Linebeck. And Linebeck, oh my god, what a character. This game doesn't have a very wide range of different characters that you can meet because of the way that the world is, but the characters that they do have really make up for it. Linebeck, if we didn't have Groose in this lineup, Linebeck would be one of the top tier characters. He's not really a companion, but he kind of is. But his character development throughout this whole story is amazing. He starts off as a swashbuckler, kind of scummy Han Solo type deal, like he's not going to do anything unless he gets a benefit out of it. And then you learn he's a coward as you go on. It comes through subtly, and then like the dialogue between your fairy companion and he just really hones in on him being a coward. But by the end of the game, he is the reason why you're able to finally defeat the bad guy, which is Bellum. And then Bellum himself, a great stand-in villain for Ganon, because they obviously couldn't use him again. There are some really great similarities between Bellum in this game and Ganon from Breath of the Wild in terms of malice and the eyeball iconography and the goo around him and malice and that sort of thing. So I think there's some theory crafting to do there. I'm pretty sure some people have already done it, so I'm not going to delve too deeply into that. But man, I'm so tired because it's just rolled over. It's now April 1st. So it took me exactly 3 weeks to beat this game. I kind of have been distracted because Valheim came out on Xbox, and I've still been tapping away at Hogwarts Legacy. So a lot of competing factors there, and I'm supposed to be building a kitchen very soon. So I've been very distracted from playing this. But that means that now we've got 42 days, I think.
It's false.
Until we get to Tears of the Kingdom. There's been a gameplay reveal recently. I'm very excited because this game is the first time, well, not the first time, but it's one of the times that they had a very amazing piece of hardware with the DS, and they've used every piece of it for specifically this game. Breath of the Wild was a Wii U game, so they adapted it to the Switch, but they didn't use everything they could. So I'm really excited to see what kinds of little hidden gems they put in to Tears of the Kingdom that utilize things like I don't have my Switch with me down here, but that utilizes the nunchucks, like infrared scanners and that sort of thing, beyond the gyroscope, because this has a gyroscope in it. The technology that the Switch has, I'd love to see how they use it, what they think of, and how they deploy it. So we have Spirit Tracks on us. We can start playing it straight away. Oh, suspension point loaded. I think one of my kids has been playing this. I feel like it's going to take me another 3 weeks or so to beat this game. Maybe more, because I've never beaten it before. So that gives me like 2 weeks or less to beat Breath of the Wild, which is fine, because Breath of the Wild is you don't have to do everything. I could just do 1 or 2 Divine Beasts and beat Ganon that way. And I'd feel pretty confident that I could do that in a couple of days. I want to get another video out on Anzac Day, in honor of Anzac Day. So if you're watching this and you haven't seen that, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm so tired. Bottom line is, I feel good. I think we're at a good spot in the video. Definitely I've gotten out of that funk I was in during that 8-bit era, and we're on a clean road now. A clean road out of here. Onto track. We're onto a track. We're on a clean track. We're making tracks in Spirit Tracks. I gotta stop talking. We just beat Spirit Tracks for the very first time. Wow, you might have beaten it before. I've never beaten it before. And very much like when you're on a journey somewhere that you've never been before, it feels like it takes forever. This journey took me what felt like such a very long time. I think it's because I got the flu halfway through it, or just towards the end. I'm only just getting over it, which has been really sucky, and just made this whole thing feel like I just wanted to get it done and dusted. But it is all over now. Hooray, we've done it. So I've got some things to say about this game. The positives: there's some really good humor in this game. The chemistry between Link and Zelda is actually really charming. Zelda is so funny in this game, and the comedy timing is just so good. So those were very, very funny. what I didn't like about this game, and it felt like it was leading to such a good ending, but the boss battle that I just went through, oh man, it was just so frustrating. And I think it's for 3 reasons. At first, when you enter the demon realm, it's not a dungeon. I was expecting like one big bad dungeon, but it was just a train track. It was literally just playing Thomas the Tank Engine with demon trains, and then the big bad demon train that's been just grieving you through the whole game. The boss battle with that is the equivalent of being on a 4-lane motorway with a really bad driver in front of you that can't see you with his wing mirrors. So that was a bit disappointing, and not too challenging either, which is strange. I felt like the end of Phantom Hourglass, where you're fighting against the ghost boat, the ghost ship, was more challenging than this. And then the battle with Meliodas, you had to get Zelda as a phantom up to the top of the train, and Link had to hide behind her because a laser would hit Link. He had to fend off these rats that, if they touched her, should become possessed and a puppet and knock you all the way back. And the hitbox for the rats was so close to the box that would stop Zelda from moving. It was all just so frustrating. And then, should I be reading this? No. Excuse me. Pardon me. And then, in the middle of the heated battle with the Demon King, which is turned into like a Ganon type, like it felt very Breath of the Wild in the way it was wrapping up, but in the very pitch of the meeting of this big demon, Zelda and Link stopped to play a pipe music song thing, which happens throughout the game. You have to play these songs on the spirit pipes, and some of the Locomo, which are like the Sheikah in this game, they're like the elders or the sages. They're very forgiving of Link with the fact that he can't really play the pipes. He's like a child playing a recorder, or at least I am. I sucked at it. Zelda was like Gordon Ramsay over here. She would not let it go that I could not play this flute properly. She's like, no, come on, you can do it. Don't fluster, don't panic. It's like, well, we're kind of trying to kill a giant beast. Maybe you could be a little bit easier, carry me a little bit. I'm just the backup music player here. Oh, that was fucking perfect. What are you talking about? I've never been more mad at any end boss fight. Ever. What kind of boss fight stops in the middle of the boss fight for you to play a calming pipe melody on like a Panama flutes? Is this South Park? I feel like this is the worst, and I have to blow into this tiny hole, and I think it's gunked up on the second-hand Wii U that I have, because it only picks up every second note, and I can blow hard or I can blow soft, and it doesn't seem to matter. And I nailed it that other time, and I'm fuming right now. I just want this game to be over. All you have to do is play the notes I showed you. I'm playing the notes. I'm playing the notes you showed me, Zelda. And I'm playing them fine. Stop being such a stroppy bitch and just calm this fucking Demon King down. We do it. Oh my god, we did it. Oh my god. I don't know who made this game. I don't know why you are the way you are. But I hope to God that you never think to put that mechanic in another Zelda game ever again. It was a good game. Like, for a game that goes in your pocket from 2009 or 10 or whenever it came out, it's got a very charming soundtrack. The music in this game is really great, and I hear it all the time when people make like theory videos about Zelda. They'll use the Spirit Track sound. I'm still only operating on half a potato up here in my brain.
the soundtrack, the main theme for Spirit Track with the pipes is just awesome. It's such a good sound. And there are some other renditions of other famous Zelda songs that are thrown in there that just are so good. The gameplay, like the world is really big, but it doesn't feel as immersive as Phantom Hourglass did, because you can't just go anywhere, you have to follow the tracks, and that part frustrates me, especially when there are things on the tracks that you have to work around. Oh, excuse me, I'm so tired. But yeah, it's so it's been a bit of a grind in that sense, that some of the levels weren't as exciting. I did like the dungeons. There were some really tricky dungeons, some really cool weapons and items, except for the giant fan. So aside from putting a musical instrument in here that requires you to be able to blow on this tiny little microphone, which I don't know if it's just the WiiU mic or this WiiU mic in particular, but this sucks for picking up anything. And like when you're trying to play when you've had the flu and you're out of breath, that sucks too. But having a weapon that relies on you being able to on there and that to be able to hear that, that was it just didn't make for good gameplay. So I'm glad I'm happy that I've finally beaten this game and I can tick it off my Zelda playlist. It's another notch in the belt there, and it feels really good. Like, just to make some context around what's going on, today's the 14th of April, so local time at 2 a.m. this morning, the final Tears of the Kingdom trailer came out, and man, that game looks good. And so that means that we're like 28 days, I think, away from that game finally launching, which means all I have to play now is Breath of the Wild, and then chuck this footage together and put it up on YouTube, and this video's done, and I could beat Breath of the Wild like in a couple of days. So I can take my time, I can relax. I might even be able to play Jedi Survivor. What's happening here? That was cute. Weird ending. Wonder if they're trying to set up a third one. Yeah. It's so I feel like my camera is blurry. Has my camera been out of focus this whole time? I think my camera was out of focus that whole time. I apologize. Well, no, you're probably happy that you didn't have to look at me in sharper focus. Let's crack straight into Breath of the Wild. Is my voice cracking? So, I'll tell you guys a little bit of a story about this game. 6 years ago, I walked out of EB Games, which was like New Zealand's version of GameStop, at the midnight release. I was like 10th in line to pick up my brand new Nintendo Switch. They gave me this game like 2 or 3 hours before the actual release, because we were all just waiting around. You couldn't play it without the Switch, so it was waiting for the hardware. Met some really, really nice people while I was in line. Don't know where any of them were gone, but snuck home, got home at about 1 a.m. after generously offering to drop somebody off who was just going to walk through the middle of Lower Hutt with a brand new Nintendo Switch at 12 at night. That guy was going to get mugged. Plugged it into this little cheap $40 capture card, and I made my first Breath of the Wild playthrough video, which felt unreal at the time. So I'm going to put on for nostalgia. So it feels so good right now to be able to sit down again in the exact same spot 6 years later and still, like, even though there's a lot of mysteries that have been solved, there's a lot in this game that I've done that I already know how it's going to play out. Starting a new game, and this always feels so good, and it's always just enjoyable to get lost in the game. And just the steps this game takes to introduce you to all of the new game mechanics. Like
oh, here's an impenetrable wall. You can't do anything, but you can climb it. And just getting used to that mechanic. And then this next piece, this is what gets everybody. I'm just going to shut up and I'm just going to let this play out, because this is beautiful.
We pray for your protection, and we hope that you will grow stronger together.
Show the enemy no fear.
I have no choice but to entrust the rest to you.
Couple of days and weeks since I finally beat Spirit Tracks and started playing Breath of the Wild, I've seen more and more YouTubers and streamers start playing Breath of the Wild in the lead up to Tears of the Kingdom. We're the only ones who've gone back not only to the beginning of the timeline, but to the beginning of the legacy of these games and played through every bit of the way. And when I say every bit, I mean 8-bit, 16-bit, 64-bit. All the way up to where we are now. No one else has, that I have seen, I could be wrong, but no one else has taken these measures. So I feel very proud to stand here before you after beating every single game that I could be bothered to beat that made sense. I'm looking at you, Zelda 2, Adventure of Link, which I feel bad about that. We're now at the apex of the game. Have I beaten it at this point? No, I haven't. It's Monday, the 8th of May. It comes out on Friday. So generally what I normally do is do a huge playthrough each night over the weekend. And I could have totally beaten it. But I think I mentioned back during Spirit Tracks or Phantom Hourglass that I've got a kitchen to build. And I've been doing that all weekend. That's why I look like shit. I've done 2 almost all-nighters up to 2 or 3 a.m. building cabinets, putting them in place, making them level. The templater guy just came to measure out the bench and told me that I have to take it all out and cut a whole bunch of stuff out to fit in the hobs in the sink. So that's great. But will I beat it before Tears of the Kingdom comes out? Absolutely, we will. But I want this video to come out today, and I want you guys to be able to watch it in the lead up to Tears of the Kingdom. So that's why I'm recording this before I've officially beaten it. By the time you're seeing this, I might have even done it already. So, Breath of the Wild is just so different to every other game that we've played. It's so fundamentally different. But if you played The Legend of Zelda, the original, first, and then played Breath of the Wild next, after being in a coma for 30 odd years, I think you would turn around and say, that makes sense. I can see that being the logical progression for the game. It kind of deviated off on a certain genre, and it helped establish us to think of what is a Zelda game. But if you didn't have that context or that history, that's where Breath of the Wild comes in and makes sense. That's why there's been such a new, big audience. And if they went back and played Skyward Sword as the next Zelda game, or a Link's Awakening as the HD remake on the Switch, they would have been like, what the hell is this? Because those games are so fundamentally different and nuanced to what we got with Breath of the Wild. I think Twilight Princess or Windwaker would have made more sense to put through as ports, because they're there, they're ready, they're available, and it would have helped people connect those two genres together. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens after Tears of the Kingdom, because I don't know if we're ever going back to a traditional Zelda game aside from getting remakes or remasters. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting and scary to think about. But I am pumped for Tears of the Kingdom. My journey with Breath of the Wild this time around was great. I feel like I always over-prepare for Ganon, and really it's the wilderness and the travel that is the main challenge and the main boss. Just like back in Zelda 1. The actual act of getting to dungeons was the hard part. Once you're in them, they were actually pretty simple. The puzzles were pretty easy, which I feel the same way with the shrines and that sort of thing. So Breath of the Wild was fun. I discovered one new thing this time around, which I'm still stunned that a game that's 6 years old is providing, but I found out there's a fish in Kakariko Village that I think only appears in that village, and it's like this special breed of fish that just doesn't appear anywhere else. So I thought that was really cool. I also happened to kill my first horse, which I called Thirsty, in a horrible boomerang accident. Luckily I was able to revive it with the horse guard, which is just terrifying, and then I got a second horse. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. What is next is Tears of the Kingdom. That is coming up in 4 days' time. My pre-order went up on the Switch on Friday, so my kids came home from school and freaked out. They're like, oh my god, we can play it now, this is amazing! And then realized it was locked down for another week, so they're like, move the clock forward, change the clock! They were just trying to do everything they could to get their hands on it. I will be going live, doing a live stream, which I haven't checked out if that will be before the Treehouse, because the Treehouse is 3 hours before the release date Eastern Time in America. I'm 17 hours ahead of that, so I'm gonna jump in, do a little bit of a welcome thing while we wait for it to roll over with Nintendo Australia, and then we're gonna jump straight in to the gameplay. So I generally turn commentary off after that, and I just let people enjoy. I'll turn off the camera, it'll just be that. So if you want to come along and see that, please by all means join me if you want to see it. I know a lot of people don't want spoilers. I know it's been pretty wild out there since the game leaked like a week ago, so my chances of actually getting an audience to come and watch is pretty slim. But if you want to hang out and have a chat or whatever, yeah, jump in and watch that if you like. If you're still on the fence as to whether or not you want Tears of the Kingdom, or if you just want to know what the opening looks like and where you start, come and say hi. I'd really appreciate it, because my streams tend to be 30 people just dropping in, oh yeah, dropping out. And that's just the way it is. I've got a few other things on the go, so video projects this month are going to be quite stinted. I've got a secret project brewing. I've got some bourbon on the go as well. So I'm going to fill up these barrels from Bad Mo with some bourbon. But my main goal at the moment is to just get the kitchen finished, because I've promised my kids that on the morning of Tears of the Kingdom, after I've done my all-nighter playing it and having a good run around, I'm going to make them a hash brown and egg McMuffin breakfast. And so I need the oven working so I can do that. And we're going to sit down and they'll have a little play of it for an hour or two before school, and then they'll bugger off, and I'll play it a little bit more until I pass out. And it'll be great. I'm excited. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me and watching this. If you're still watching at this point, I'm genuinely impressed. Thank you so much from the bottom of my wild heart. My Breath of the Wild Heart t-shirt. I felt inspired by that. Yeah, just thanks for sticking with me and putting up with all of this. That's it. That's the whole video. So see you guys in a few days.